I still remember the sound of the door slamming behind me. The cold wind slapped my face as I stood there, barefoot on the porch, gripping my cardigan to my chest like it could protect me from the words that had just pierced my heart. My own son, my baby boy I carried for 9 months, raised through fevers and heartbreaks, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're a burden, Mom. You've done enough. It's time you leave." And then he did it. He threw me out of my own house. The house I helped pay for. The house I helped build with my late husband's hands. And he didn't just throw me out with words. He packed a garbage bag with my clothes, shoved it into my arms, and shut that heavy oak door like I was some stranger. What he didn't know, what he couldn't ever guess, was that I was walking away with something worth $1.7 million. Something he'd never see a single cent of. But before I tell you how I came to hold on to that fortune, you need to understand how we got here. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about love. About betrayal. About everything a mother sacrifices. And everything she never expects to lose. My name is Dorothy Ellen Grace. I'm 84 years old, with silver blonde hair, creaky knees, and a heart that's still healing. I'm a retired school principal from a quiet little town in Vermont. I spent nearly 50 years working with children, teaching them to read, to believe, to be kind. I only had one child of my own, though. My son, Michael. He was my whole world. And maybe that's why I didn't see what he was becoming. You see, after my husband passed, sweet William, God rest his soul, I moved in with Michael. He insisted. "Don't worry about a thing, Mom," he said. "You'll always have a home with us." At first, it felt like a blessing. I helped around the house, did some gardening, even taught my grandson to bake lemon squares. Michael's wife, Trish, didn't like me much, but I tried not to take it personally. I thought it would get better. It didn't. It started small. Whispers behind closed doors. "I wish she'd give us some space. She's always around. Do we have to include her?" Then came the sighs, the eye rolls, the conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Trish told people I left crumbs in the kitchen. Michael scolded me like a child for using the guest bathroom when theirs was occupied. Then one morning, I opened the fridge and found all my labeled containers. My soups, my jam, my medications. Gone. When I asked about it, Trish shrugged. "We needed space. This isn't your kitchen, Dorothy." And Michael, he didn't say a word. I felt myself shrinking in that house. I began spending more time outside, tending the rose bush by the mailbox, talking to the birds like some old fool. But nothing prepared me for what happened the day he threw me out. Earlier that morning, I'd made blueberry muffins, Michael's favorite. I even left a little note on the counter. "Made with love." Just like old times. I waited all morning for him to come down. When he did, he picked up the muffin, took a bite, then looked at Trish. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered. Then louder, "Mom, we need to talk." He didn't sit. He didn't smile. He didn't even look me in the eye for long. He just said it. "You're becoming a burden. We need our life back. I think it's best you leave." I was so stunned, I thought he was joking. "Michael, what are you talking about?" But Trish had already walked into the hallway, holding a black trash bag full of my sweaters and slippers. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she said coldly. Michael added, "You'll be fine, Mom. There's a home in town. You can afford it." That's when it hit me. They weren't asking me to leave. They had planned this. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just walked out. But as I stood there on the porch, rain beginning to drizzle from the gray clouds above, I clutched something in my coat pocket. It was an old key, tied with red yarn, and connected to the one thing that would change everything. Because years ago, after William passed, I did something Michael never knew about. Something that would make him regret ever calling me a burden. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the only motel in town with a vacancy, room 6 of the Maple Hollow Inn, where the walls smelled like mothballs and the lamp flickered if you touched the nightstand too hard. I sat by the window, hugging my bag, the black trash sack Trish had filled for me like I was some stray mutt they were done feeding. But what they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this for years. You see, William, my late husband, was a planner. He was a quiet man, a carpenter by trade, but he believed in security, in making sure things were taken care of. So when he got sick, really sick, with the cancer that robbed him of his smile, he pulled me close one night and said, "Dorothy, I don't trust Michael with money. He's too impulsive." I didn't want to believe him. Not then. But William had always seen things I couldn't. So, before he passed, we moved some money. A lot of it. $1.7 million, to be exact. It was the life insurance, the savings from the house we sold in Boston, and a few clever investments William made with the help of a banker friend. Instead of putting it in a shared account where Michael would get a sniff of it, William created a trust. In my name. In a bank in another state. We never spoke of it after. I lived simply. I didn't need much. A garden, my knitting, and memories of William were enough. But that key in my coat pocket, the one wrapped with red yarn, was to the safe deposit box holding the documents. My lifeline. And now that Michael had pushed me out like yesterday's garbage, I was going to open it. The next morning, I caught a greyhound out of Vermont. No calls. No goodbyes. I was gone before the sun even kissed the treetops. The ride to Connecticut was long, bumpy, and filled with too many thoughts. Had I been a bad mother? Had I smothered him somehow? Or was this just who he'd become? A man who valued space and silence over the woman who gave him everything? I stared out the window at passing hills and strip malls and gas stations, thinking of the boy I used to sing lullabies to. The one who used to call me Mama Bear. Where did he go? When I arrived at the bank, the teller was a soft-spoken girl named Ashley who smiled without judgment. The manager brought me into the vault personally, like I was royalty. My hands shook as I inserted the key. The box slid open, metallic and cold. Inside were papers, stacks of them, neatly labeled. The trust, the account, the investment portfolio, and on top of them all, a handwritten letter. From William. Dorothy, if you're reading this, something has happened. And if Michael's involved, I'm sorry. I hope he grows. I hope he sees your worth. But if he doesn't, this money is for you to start again. Live. Don't just survive. Find peace. And remember, I love you forever. Yours always, William. I cried in that vault, not because of the money, but because for the first time since he passed, I felt seen again. I checked the balance later that day. $1,743,218.67. All mine. Untouched. Unreachable by Michael or Trish. I laughed. I actually laughed, sitting there on a metal bench outside the bank, pigeons flapping by. Imagine that, an old woman, no home, no family, but a millionaire in secret. I booked a hotel room that night. Not a motel, but a real hotel with clean sheets and warm tea in the lobby. I started making plans. Not for revenge. No, I wasn't interested in that. I wanted peace. I wanted warmth. I wanted to feel human again. But something inside me whispered, "Don't disappear. Let them see. Let them know what they lost." So I made a call. To an old friend, Tina Keller, my college roommate from 1962, who now lived in Arizona and ran a small flower farm with her granddaughter. "Dorothy. Oh my Lord, is that you?" We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, but it was like no time had passed. "I need a place to land," I told her, just for a while. Sweetheart, she said, you come here and stay as long as you want. We've got a guest house with your name on it. And just like that, I had somewhere to go. I spent the next week traveling cross-country. It felt strange and beautiful, taking buses, then a train, then a hired car. Every sunset I passed felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself. In my suitcase were just a few old clothes. But tucked in my purse were the trust documents, the letter, and a brand new checkbook linked to my $1 million account. And yet, through all the joy and freedom, something gnawed at me. Because Michael didn't even call. Didn't check on me. Didn't wonder if I made it out alive. But then, 1 week after I vanished, something happened that shattered everything I thought I knew. My phone buzzed in the middle of the night. A number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Mom, the voice said, trembling. Mom, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Please call me back. It was Michael. And he was crying. I didn't sleep that night. Michael's voice echoed in my ears like a ghost from a past I was trying to bury. Please, Mom. Please call me back. I made a mistake. I need you. It wasn't just regret in his voice. I panicked. And that's what made my chest tighten. Not the apology. Not the sorrow. But the fear. What had happened? I didn't call him back right away. Instead, I sat on the porch of Tina's flower farm under a sky full of stars, sipping chamomile tea and trying to make sense of it all. This place, this quiet little oasis, was paradise compared to the icy silence I'd lived with back in Vermont. Tina's granddaughter brought me fresh-baked apple pie. The breeze smelled like lavender and damp soil. I'd started smiling again, sleeping through the night. And just when I was beginning to believe I was safe, he called again. 4 times. I turned off the phone. The next morning, I decided to check something. I logged onto the investment tracking app Williams Banker had helped set up for me, something I had never needed to use before. I just wanted to look, to remind myself that I had choices. That's when I saw it. A transaction attempt. $0 withdrawn. But someone had tried to access the account. Failed. 3 times. My eyes widened. The system showed the failed login came from Vermont. I dropped the phone. It all clicked in my mind like thunder. Michael wasn't just sorry. He found out. Somehow, someway, he had discovered the trust. And now he wanted it. Not me. It. I took a walk through the flower fields, trying to calm the storm inside me. Tina met me halfway down the path, holding a watering can and wearing her usual wide straw hat. You all right, sugar? She asked. I nodded. Lied. Just got a call from Michael. Her eyebrows rose. Well, she said slowly, I always thought that boy of yours looked like trouble, even when you showed me his baby pictures. I gave her a weak smile. You think I'm being unfair? She leaned on her cane. No. I think you're being honest. And sometimes that's the only thing a mother can be. That evening, I finally called him back. My voice was steady, cold, calm. Michael, I said, why are you calling me? He sniffled on the other end like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Mom, I didn't know what I was doing. Trish and we've been going through stuff. The house, it's not even ours anymore. We're behind on everything. I was just so stressed. I didn't mean what I said. You told me I was a burden, I said flatly. You threw me out like trash. I know, he whispered. I hate myself for that. Silence stretched between us. Then he dropped it. I found the letter. My heart stopped. What letter? I asked, even though I already knew. The one from Dad. In the box in the attic. It was under some old stuff. I wasn't snooping, I swear. Liar. And I know about trust. The money. I don't want it. Mom, I'm begging you, please come back. If you come back, we can figure it out. Together. Please. But I wasn't moved. Not this time. Michael, did you know that I used to skip lunch to feed you? That I worked double shifts to keep your art classes going because you said you wanted to be a painter? He was silent. Did you know your father died worrying that you'd sell your soul for $1? He gasped. I continued. You said I was a burden, that you needed your life back. Well, you got it. And now you want mine. No, it's not like that. Please, Mom, I'm scared. We're going to lose the house. I paused. Then, coldly, I already lost my home when you shut that door. I hung up, and I cried, not because I hated him, but because I still loved him, and that was the cruelest part of all. 3 days passed. Then one morning, a black SUV pulled into the Flower Farm's gravel driveway. Tina and I were on the porch. She squinted. Are you expecting company? I wasn't. A man stepped out of the car in a suit. Not Michael. A lawyer. He introduced himself politely, then handed me an envelope. Inside was a petition. Michael and Trish were trying to challenge the trust, claiming mental instability, exploitation, fraud. They were trying to get my money. My breath caught in my throat. I looked up at the man, hands trembling. Tell Michael, I said, he's about to find out what kind of woman he raised. I thought I had seen the worst of it. The betrayal, the abandonment, the manipulation. But nothing, not even the day Michael slammed that front door in my face, prepared me for what I found when I opened that envelope fully. Because tucked behind the legal petition was something else. A court summons. Michael wasn't just challenging the trust. He was accusing me of elder mental decline, trying to prove I was no longer of sound mind and unfit to control my own estate. He wanted the court to strip me of my independence, to hand over control of everything, my money, my medical decisions, my life. My son wasn't just coming for my trust fund. He was trying to own me. I dropped the papers and stared into space as Tina took them gently from my lap. Her face twisted with rage and disbelief. That little brat's gonna find out what happens when you try to strong-arm a lioness. But I couldn't even speak. It felt like a second death. This time, the death of hope. Hope that maybe, deep down, he still loved me. Because you don't drag your own mother into court unless you've already decided she's no longer human. The court date was in 3 weeks. We called William's old lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a silver-haired gentleman who had known our family for years and had helped draft the trust. When I told him what was happening, he didn't say much at first. But then he cleared his throat and said, Dorothy, this is going to be ugly. But I promise you, he won't win. I clenched the phone tightly. I'm not afraid, I said. And I wasn't. I was angry. The next week was filled with prep, depositions, documentation, mental health evaluations. I took every test they threw at me, cognitive exams, memory games, psychiatric interviews. I passed all of them with flying colors. Turns out, being 84 doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means people like Michael forget you were once strong enough to raise a man who now wants to tear you down. On the day of the court hearing, I wore my Sunday best. A navy blue dress, my late husband's watch on my wrist, and my hair in a soft bun, like I used to wear when I was principal. Tina came with me. So did Mr. Thompson and his assistant, a young sharp girl named Rebecca who looked like she could slice paper with a glance. We walked into that courtroom like warriors. Michael and Trish were already there. Trish was wearing pearls too big for her neck and an outfit that screamed desperation masked as class. Michael barely looked at me. The judge entered. And just like that, it began. Their lawyer started with the sob story. Mrs. Grace is an elderly woman who suffered immense emotional trauma after the death of her husband. She has no stable home, no routine, no consistent medical care. It is our concern that she is being manipulated or taken advantage of by unknown parties. My jaw clenched. Then they pulled out photos. Photos of me at Tina's flower farm, laughing, holding a cup of tea, wearing mismatched gardening gloves. They tried to paint me as unstable, unfit. They even had a neighbor from Vermont write a statement claiming I was wandering the streets at odd hours. That's when I stood up. The courtroom hushed. "May I speak, Your Honor?" The judge nodded. I walked slowly to the stand, my cane tapping against the wooden floor like a drum. Then I looked right at Michael. "I may be old," I began, "but I am not broken. My husband and I spent our entire lives building something, not just wealth, but values, honor, hard work, loyalty." I turned to the judge. After my husband died, I moved in with my son. I helped raise his child. I cooked, cleaned, and loved them both unconditionally. My voice shook, but only a little. And then one day, they decided I was in the way. They didn't sit down with me. They didn't offer options. They packed my things in a trash bag and pushed me out into the cold. Trish gasped. I ignored her. "This money," I said, holding up a copy of the trust, "was never theirs. It was my husband's parting gift to me. And I won't let the same son who abandoned me now try to steal it from me in the name of concern." The room was silent. Michael couldn't look me in the eye. Mr. Thompson stood up next. He presented the documents, the evaluations, the proof that I had passed every single mental test with higher scores than most 60-year-olds. Then came the bombshell. He submitted a recorded voicemail. From Michael. The one he left the night he begged me to come back. "I didn't mean it, Mom. I just need the money. We're drowning. Trish is going to leave if I can't fix this." The judge's eyes widened. Trish turned bright red. Michael stood up, stammering. "Why, Your Honor, that was a private." "Sit down, Mr. Grace," the judge snapped. After a brief recess, the judge returned. He looked directly at me and then at Michael. "Mrs. Grace," he said, "you are competent and independent, and you've demonstrated strength that should be admired, not questioned." He turned to Michael. "Your petition is not only denied, it is disgraceful. If I could fine you for wasting this court's time, I would." My eyes burned with tears. Not because I was sad, but because I had won. As we exited the courtroom, Michael followed behind us. He called out once, "Mom, please wait." I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "I waited, Michael," I said softly, "for years, but not anymore." It had been almost 2 months since the courtroom showdown. 2 months of peace. Of finally sleeping through the night without worrying about someone snooping through my drawers. Of quiet mornings sipping tea while Tina's goats bleated in the distance. I was finally starting to feel like myself again. Until the day I opened the front door of the guest cottage and saw Michael standing there. His shoulders were hunched. His face was gaunt. His once crisp polo shirt was wrinkled and stained. And in his hand was nothing but a backpack. "Mom," he whispered, eyes full of water. "Please don't shut the door." I didn't. But I didn't step aside either. I just stared at him, frozen between heartbreak and fury. I have nowhere else to go, he said. Trish left. She took Mason and moved in with her sister. The house is gone. The cars. Everything. I messed up. For a moment, I saw that little boy again, the one who clung to my leg at kindergarten drop-off. The one who used to say, "Don't worry, Mama Bear. I'll protect you when I grow up." But this wasn't a child looking for comfort. This was a man who had shattered every promise. "You told the court I was insane," I said, voice low. His lips trembled. "I didn't mean it. I panicked. I thought, if I could just get the money, we could fix everything. I was stupid." "You were cruel," I corrected. He dropped to his knees. "I'm begging you. Not for the money. Not even for a place to stay. Just for a chance to make it right." Tina had been watching from the garden. I could feel her gaze. I sighed. "Come inside. You can wash up. But that's it. No promises." He nodded rapidly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. He showered, ate, slept on the couch. The first few days, he barely spoke. I could tell he was ashamed. Good. But I also saw something else. Brokenness. Not just because of what he lost, but because of who he'd become. And as angry as I was, I still remembered the boy who once tried to glue macaroni to construction paper just to say, "Happy Mother's Day." One afternoon, as we sat peeling potatoes in the kitchen, he finally spoke. "I never told you this, but after Dad died, I panicked. I didn't respond. I thought I had to fill his shoes, make money, be strong. But I wasn't ready. And when things got hard with Trish, I started blaming you. It was easier than blaming myself." I looked at him. "You blamed me. For what?" "For staying. For watching. For being the only one who reminded me I was failing." His voice cracked. "You were always doing everything right. I couldn't live up to that." It was a strange thing, hearing your own child say he resented you for being there. But deep down, I understood, because I'd been a shadow too long, trying not to overstep, trying to be helpful, but not a burden. And in the process, I'd made him feel small. Maybe not by words, but by never needing help. That night, I sat alone in the garden, watching fireflies blink in the dark. Then I took a pen and opened my journal. I wrote one sentence. "I don't owe anyone forgiveness, but I owe myself peace." And that meant making a choice. The next morning, I handed Michael a list. A checklist. At the top, I wrote, "If you want to stay, here's what it will take. A get a job, any job. A contribute to food and chores. A therapy. Real therapy. A no questions about money. A absolutely no lies." His eyes scanned the list. He looked up, surprised. "You're giving me a chance?" I nodded slowly. "Not for you," I said. "For me. Because I'm tired of carrying anger, and I want to see if there's anything left to rebuild." To my surprise, he tried. He started working at the local hardware store. He made dinner twice a week. Burnt the chicken the first time. Apologized the second. He even offered to help Tina in the garden, though he nearly passed out from the heat. But more than anything, he listened. Really listened. He sat with me in the evenings, asking questions about Dad, about how we met, about the things I liked. It was like meeting my son for the first time. And then one evening, he said something I'll never forget. "I don't deserve your trust. I don't deserve anything. But if you ever want to pass something on, not the money, not the house, but your story, I'd be honored to carry that." I stared at him, speechless, because maybe, just maybe, That was what I needed all along. Not to be honored with flowers or riches or holidays, but to be remembered, to be understood. But peace is never permanent, because just as we started to feel like a family again, a white envelope showed up in the mailbox. No return address, just my name, handwritten in shaky ink. I opened it, and the blood drained from my face. Inside was a second trust document, one I never knew existed, and it was signed not just by William, but by someone else, a name I hadn't seen in over 40 years. The moment I saw the name, my knees buckled. Howard Langston. I hadn't heard that name in decades. Not since I was a young woman with trembling hands and a broken voice, standing in a sterile hospital room begging him not to leave. Howard was my first love. The man I almost married. Before William. Before Vermont. Before the life I built and lost and rebuilt again. But Howard had vanished after a fire at the mill where he worked. The reports said no survivors. I mourned him. I buried him in my heart. And now, there was his signature, right next to my late husband's, on a second trust document I never knew existed. A trust marked with the title, Dorothy's Restoration. Michael was seated across from me at the kitchen table when I read it. He looked up as my hands shook. "What is it?" he asked softly. I couldn't speak. I just handed him the paper. His brows furrowed as he read. Then his eyes widened. Who is Howard Langston?" I stood up and walked outside, the screen door creaking behind me. The past had just crashed into my present with the force of a hurricane. The next morning, I called Mr. Thompson. He was stunned. He confirmed the document's authenticity. It had been notarized in the same year William passed. But what shocked him most was the date of the signature. 3 months after William's death. "Dorothy," he said carefully, "this trust, it's recent. Too recent. Are you saying William signed it before he passed?" "No," I whispered. "He was already gone." Tina and I sat in silence that evening, staring at the document under the soft golden light of a farmhouse lamp. "Howard was the first man I ever loved," I finally confessed. "We were young, poor, dreaming of everything." "What happened?" she asked. "He took a night shift at the paper mill. There was a fire. They said, no survivors." I had cried for months, and when I finally found the strength to move on, I met William. He was kind, steady, safe, but a piece of me always remained locked away with Howard. Until now. The document explained everything. After William's passing, Howard had come forward. He had been alive all along, burned, unrecognizable, and misidentified after the fire. He had spent years recovering, alone, silent, watching from a distance. He said he didn't want to ruin my new life. He didn't want to confuse me or bring pain. But after William died, Howard reached out. To Mr. Thompson. To my banker. Quietly. He asked how I was. And when he heard I'd been thrown out, he acted. He added his own fortune, something I didn't know he even had, into a new trust. One I could only access when I truly needed it. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I read his letter, attached to the back. "You saved me once, Dorothy. With your love. With your laughter. I couldn't come back into your life and ask for space in a heart already full of grief. But I can give you this, safety again. Freedom. You deserve to never depend on anyone who doesn't see your worth. And if by some miracle you find this, just know that somewhere I'm still rooting for you. Still in love with you. Forever." I wept for hours. Not for Howard. Not even for William. But for the girl I once was, the one who had loved deeply, lost everything, and somehow still survived. Michael sat outside my room that night. Quiet. Still. He hadn't said much after reading the document. I could tell it made him uncomfortable. Maybe I'm jealous. Maybe ashamed. Or maybe it just made him realize how little he truly knew about his mother. The next day, I visited the bank with Mr. Thompson. This second trust, it held $2.3 million. My jaw dropped. With William's trust, I now had over $4 million, and not a soul could touch it but me. That evening, I invited Michael into the sitting room. He looked nervous, like a kid about to be grounded. But I didn't scold him. Instead, I sat him down and said, "You once told me you resented me for always being strong." He nodded slowly. "But I want you to understand something, Michael. That strength, it didn't come from money, or control, or being perfect. It came from losing, from watching everything I loved disappear and choosing to stand back up anyway." His eyes brimmed with tears. "I see that now," he said. "Do you?" I asked. "Because if you do, then you'll understand the next thing I'm about to say." I paused, then looked him straight in the eye. "You're not in my will." He flinched. "But you are in my life. For now." His voice cracked. "That's more than I deserve." I nodded. "And that's all I'm offering." Just as he stood up to leave, the phone rang. I answered. It was the hospital. The voice on the line was gentle but urgent. "Mrs. Grace, we believe someone just checked into our care unit under the name Howard Langston. He asked for you by name." My knees nearly gave out. He was alive. The hospital was quiet. Too quiet. Each footstep I took down the hallway echoed like a memory, soft, uncertain, and full of emotion I hadn't dared to feel in over 40 years. Room 208. That's where they said he was. Howard Langston. My first love. The man who once disappeared in a blaze of fire and smoke. The man whose name is whispered in dreams and buried beneath layers of duty and grief. And now, he was just on the other side of that door. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I hesitated. What if he didn't remember me? What if time had erased the softness in his eyes, the crooked grin he wore when he teased me, the way he used to hold my hand like it was sacred? But more than that, what if he did remember? What if all of this, his return, the trust, the letter, wasn't a mistake? What if he never stopped loving me? I opened the door. Slowly. He was sitting up in the bed, thin and pale, but alert. His white hair was pulled back loosely. A neatly folded flannel blanket covered his legs. An old paperback book rested on his lap. When our eyes met, everything stopped. He smiled. Not big, not wide, just enough. "Dorothy Grace," he whispered, voice raspy but full of warmth, "still beautiful as ever." My throat tightened. I walked in, sat down beside him, and took his hand. And in that moment, it was like time folded in on itself. "I thought you were dead," I whispered, tears pooling. "I was, in every way that mattered," he replied gently. "But watching you live, from afar, that kept me breathing." He told me everything. How he survived the fire. How his identity was mistaken. How, after years of surgeries and recovery, he realized I had moved on, married William, started a family. He didn't want to interfere. Didn't want to break the life I had rebuilt. "But when William passed," he said, "I watched you fall, and no one caught you." I sat there, stunned, awash in feelings I thought had died. Then I did something I never thought I would do again. I laughed. A real, broken, healing laugh. "You old fool," I said, wiping my eyes. "You could have just knocked on my door." He chuckled too, his chest rising with effort. "I did better," he said. "I built you a way out, and I prayed you'd find it." We talked for hours. About the old days. About William, who Howard still respected deeply. About Michael. The pain. The healing. The truth. And when the sun began to set outside that little hospital room window, he looked at me and said, "Dorothy, would you forgive me if I asked for one more memory before I go?" I reached over, kissed his hand, and whispered, "You just gave me one." That night, as I sat back in Tina's guest room, watching the sky fade to black, I thought about all I had endured. At the betrayal of a son I once would have given the world to. At the strength I found in the ruins of rejection. At the $1 million gift hidden in plain sight. And the man I thought I lost forever, waiting quietly in the shadows to save me once more. Michael moved into his own small place the following week. We still talked. Not every day, but often enough. He's rebuilding. Slowly. And for once, honestly, I told him about Howard. He didn't say much, but the next day, he sent me a photo of him and Mason at a diner, sharing a slice of cherry pie. The caption read, "Starting small. Thanks, Mom." Howard lived another 3 months. He passed away peacefully one morning, holding my hand, with a soft smile on his lips. He left me a final letter. "Dorothy, you were my first love. And my last. You were the reason I lived quietly. And the reason I died was fulfilled. The world may have burned around me once, but your memory kept me warm." I used part of the money to create a scholarship in both their names. The Grace Langston Fund for women who start over after 70. Because life doesn't end when others turn their backs. Sometimes it begins. And now, I live quietly on Tina's flower farm. I read. I bake. I sing to birds that don't care if I'm off key. I'm not rich because of the money in my account. I'm rich because I walked away from what was killing me, and toward what I didn't know was still waiting to love me. Orange circle sometimes. Family isn't about blood. It's about the hands that catch you when the world lets go. Left speech bubble, let us know in the comments. What was your favorite part of Dorothy's journey? Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to know. It's never too late to start again.